Hello, and welcome to the Data ELE OLC Lightning Talk on OER and digital learning trends. I'm Kate Lee-McCarthy with OLC and representing ELE, the Every Learner Everywhere Network, and I'm honored to introduce to you Tanya Joosten of Data. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Kate.
In 2019, through ELE, Data and OLC completed an environmental scan of digital learning innovation trends and identified OER as one of 7 primary trends. As a continuation of that work, Data and OLC decided to do a deeper dive, taking a look at student success and OER. So I wanted to ask Tanya some questions on this research, and that's where we are today. So Tanya, can you quickly tell our audience here how you designed the research around this project that we just did?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ELE trends report that we put out earlier this year had identified the trend, and previously we had done an environmental scan, and I wanted to make it a little more rigorous this time. And so what we did is we developed a protocol for a systematic review for the past 3 years. So we looked at data from 2017 to 2020. We identified a series of journals that we felt were pertinent to the open education resource field and to higher ed or post-secondary education. And so we also had some parameters around that, like we wanted to make sure these were studies in the US, that we were seeing an actual relationship with student outcomes. And so this systematic review was sort of a central data collection methodology that we used for this. We also always think that public discourse is important, especially when we're talking about like innovative and emerging things, because lots of times things haven't made it to the journals yet, although OER has been around for well over 15 years. So we also developed an environmental scan protocol, which allowed us to gather different documents and communication from popular media, trade magazines, trade organizations, those sorts of things. And we also did a qualitative thematic analysis of those to incorporate with the systematic review. So not only are we looking at the peer-reviewed research that's been put out the last few years, we're also looking at what are people just talking about in higher ed, in the ed tech sort of digital learning space. And that's a little bit about the methodology we use to better understand sort of where OER is right now in the field.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that was so thorough. What surprising findings came out of this? Because there were some.
Yeah, absolutely. We always think of as OER as providing access, but I'm always surprised with everything because I would think that we would be doing more research to understand, like, are these interventions or are these practices, these instructional practices, things we're doing in the classroom, are they actually positively influencing student outcomes? Like, are students learning more? Are they getting better grades in the class? Are they completing courses or persisting? Are they satisfied with their experience? And what was interesting here is we didn't necessarily see a lot of research around, learning gains or increase in learning or academic achievement or performance. We did see a couple studies. And I think that gets us to the overarching thing is that there really wasn't a lot of research. So in the dozens of journals we looked through and 6 major databases, academic databases, we only pulled just over a dozen articles that actually met the parameters, of the protocol that we had established. And we expected like at least a few dozen, and we didn't find that. A lot of OER research is done outside of higher education, sort of our 4 credit courses that we are interested, as part of this effort to improve practice. And they were looking at things outside of the institution, like in massively open online courses or other areas like that. But the number one thing that we did find that I think a lot of us knew and why we implement it is that it is increasing access for students. Mm-hmm. So that was really awesome. So it is increasing access. Obviously, and part of this is due to the financial savings. We are seeing an impact on student outcomes like grades, and we do see a lot of positive data around student satisfaction with OER. So there's lots of positive indicators that we should continue our work in this area. We were just really quite amazed that we weren't seeing more research across the United States and post-secondary institutions that are more strategically implementing OER and identifying models that we know will positively impact student outcomes.
Wow, that's incredible. So what do you think is the takeaway? I mean, we don't have this research. What would you recommend we do?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. And I should mention too, because I didn't mention our findings from the environmental scan we did from popular media, which is sort of what got us here in the first place, right? In the trends report, we talked a lot about although there wasn't a lot of research on OER, and this was before we did the systematic review, but we did see a lot of talking about OER in the news, in the media, and by different community organizations that serve sort of that post-secondary education innovation space. And so what we did too, again, see in our environmental scan is not only did we see talking about OER, the promising thing is that we are seeing some communication about some research-related things or just anecdotal things like students like it. It's definitely, they're trying to build awareness with instructors on using it. We are seeing an impact on access. It's creating a great opportunity to create equitable learning experiences and more inclusive learning experiences by overcoming these barriers of cost and so forth. But I think the thing moving forward that we need to talk about, and in all honesty, I emailed David Wiley, that a lot of us know in the OER space, and I know from quite a while ago to just say, hey, it's really odd. Like we're trying to identify some, pedagogical models or institutional models of OER implementation that we can replicate and scale across the country, and we're not really finding a lot of research that's showing a positive impact on, student outcomes. And so, David sort of confirmed that to me. He said, we obviously know that swapping out of copyrighted textbooks for openly licensed textbooks, or OER, isn't necessarily going to result in learning gains. But we do know that it does increase access for students. It helps us create more equitable and inclusive learning environments. And David, as well as I, is like the big thing moving forward is that we need to think about, what is it that OER allows us as faculty and instructors or institutions to do differently than sort of traditional copyrighted materials. And I would even go a step further with that and thinking about, what is it about OER that allows us to change our pedagogical approach, let's say from teacher-centered approaches to more active learning-based approaches. How does it allow us to change our instruction, our pedagogical models, and also our course designs to implement more effective practices when we talk about, tech-enhanced or blended and online learning, or just learning in general in higher ed. And the other thing I was thinking about too is that OER doesn't just need to be a replacement of copyrighted textbooks. OER can be a gathering of so many different things. In my book, Social Media for Educators, I talk about in chapter 4 about using sorts of video and image repositories to add more richness. So beyond the fact that we can replace copyrighted materials, I think it would be great for us to identify how we can incorporate more media characteristics in OER, like this richness, this idea of more current content, content that relates to real life, and we can tie it to, relation to students' future professions. There's just so many ways, I think the richness and the currentness of lots of OER that's out there, or lots of content that's freely available to students, can be aggregated and curated in a way that we can truly impact student outcomes. And from our research at DETA, we know that students are asking for this type of content and materials. So I think that we need to think about, how it can be used, how it changes our pedagogy, how we can take advantage of the richness of it, and then we need to do that research that links it to the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. This is such a great report. Thank you so much for your time, Tanya. And please, to learn more about this and to access our information, please resource our PowerPoint slides that will be attached to this lightning talk. And thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.